Rob, you talked about it yesterday on the MLB Network on the Hall of Fame show. And I got to say this. When I think of the Hall of Fames, obviously you got the NFL, you got the NBA or, basketball. And every sport, of course, has one. I can't think of a sport now, Rob, other than baseball, where arguably the best hitter and the best pitcher of the last 50 years, maybe 50 years plus, aren't in the Hall of Fame. No. And that's the case now with Roger Clemens, the pitcher, and Barry Bonds, the hitter, being out.
And here's the other one. And I know Pete Rose derailed his own thing, Chris, because he did.
Right.
But Pete Rose, the all-time hit leader.
Hits leader,
when we were a kid growing up, Pete Rose was unbelievable.
He's
you know what
a
I mean?
superstar. Yep.
Exactly. Pete Rose,
No doubt.
like with the Reds and then the Phillies, and then he even played for the Montreal Expos. But you're right. It was one of those, and Chris, I really thoroughly enjoy. I gotta say to MLB Network for inviting me on. That was a really big show because of what you just said. The two biggest pitchers and pitcher and hitter, and their fate, and it being the final year. Do they get in? The suspense. Do they not get in?
Right.
So it was one of those, and the reactions were all over the place. Some people were happy to keep them out, and a lot of fans were mad, were really angry, and I think there's a disconnect. I respect the BWAA, Chris. I've told you this a million times. It is my most prized possession. I don't have any kids. It is my most prized possession in this world. It means that much to me. And I take it very seriously when I place my vote, when I do my research, and all the other stuff that goes. It's not like a flip, like, oh, whatever, you want to fill it out for me? I'm serious because I know it's important to people, and people really care about who gets in.
It's legacies. It's
It
history.
really is. It really, really is. And I think we got it wrong. That's the first time I think the BBWAA got it wrong. And, Chris, there's a disconnect between fans and writers. And I'm going to tell you
I don't
why.
know. I mean, do you think – I don't know. What is the split? Do most fans – or what you get the sense of, at least from the show, or I don't know, if you heard any other fans on the radio, do most fans think they should be in or out?
I get a sense, and it's unscientific, but I get a sense that those two great – no one's going to cry over Sammy Sosa or even Gary Sheffield. Do you know what I mean?
No,
There are other guys, but Bonds and Clemens, you're like taking away a part of what you watched, what you experienced, Chris. And it's the same thing with baseball writers frown on Mark McGwire and Sammy Sosa, but you know this because you covered it. You were writing for the New York Times, and you were going to those games.
Yep.
Baseball fans don't sour on that, Chris. They don't want to hear about the juice and all that.
Well, at that point, media weren't soured on them.
Right. No, but I'm saying
Before
like
we
now,
knew.
right. But now people still hold on to those moments. They don't frown on them. Do you know what I mean? Like, oh, what I was watching wasn't real.
Right.
They were juiced up. No, people experienced it. They remembered it. They remembered the cut-ins by ESPN. That's all I'm saying. That's the disconnect. And I think that's why fans were mad that Bonds and Clemens didn't get in. They just spent 20 years watching baseball, Chris. And now you're telling me that the two best guys I watched don't matter? People don't want to hear that.
Well, and it's going to be similar. We'll see, but with A-Rod, it could be.
And
Could be the same
who's
thing.
the face of baseball now on TV?
Right.
Alex
right.
Rodriguez.
It's strange. And here's the other thing, Rob. It doesn't look. I get it that Big Papi David Ortiz was absolved of
even that, Chris.
his
and
test.
I
just don't. It's baffling. They're all have that stain attached to them in some way, shape, or form. How do you decipher between one or the other?
I'm with you, and that's the problem that some people had. But Big Papi had a better shot. Very likable guy, was a big postseason player, right? So people seen his games, Chris. The big moments.
Oh, yeah.
Home runs. Like Big Papi did his thing. I'm not even going to sit here and act like he didn't. And so a lot of people have a lot of fond memories of him. And you remember when they had the bombing in Boston, and he said, "This is our effing city." You know what I mean?
Right.
You remember that? Come on, he endeared himself to the whole to Boston and New England.
Right.
They forever will love Big Papi.
Well, to that point, do you think A-Rod being on the air, being likable, being great at what he does, you think that, I mean, I don't think that'll hold any sway with the writers.
But do you
think that could help him?
Yes, and there was a little surprise. He got 32%, Chris, for a guy who had the longest suspension of any player for PEDs. Now, he's not like Bonds and Clemens, who never tested positive and never got suspended. A-Rod admitted, got suspended for 280 games or whatever it was over 2 years, right? And got 32%, a third of the vote. That was shocking to me. I thought it would be way lower with the writers.
This it's not black and white. You know, a lot of people throw out that statement. Oh, you can't tell the story of baseball. You can't tell the story of basketball without so and so. That doesn't always translate to Hall of Fame in my book, right?
No,
there are some players who, for whatever reason, they're in the story, but they may not be good enough to be Hall of Famers. You know what I'm saying?
No doubt about it. I totally agree with that.
Yeah, but in this case, Rob, you literally cannot tell the story of baseball without Clemens and Bonds. I just don't think you can, particularly Bonds. I mean, Clemens was fantastic too, obviously.
Bonds is the all-time home run leader, Chris. Those stats count, right? So you're going to tell a story without him?
And not just the numbers, Rob, because obviously you got the same with Pete Rose. But, Rob, I've said it, and I definitely think he used PEDs.
Right. I'm not naive either. I mean, I'm not being naive. All I've ever said is he never got tested positive and he never got suspended. But I'm not naive.
But I've never, in all my life, I've never seen a baseball player where every single at bat was must-see TV.
Yep, no doubt.
Like you had to watch Barry Bonds. What was that, 2002, whenever it was?
Yep.
That he hit the 73. I mean, it was like a 2 or 3 year stretch where you had to watch every at bat.
Watch him. And managers, well, I think it was Buck Showalter, was it? Walked him up. Guys walked him with the bases
it was
loaded.
Ridiculous.
He walked like 225 times, Chris, that season. And some games, he would only get 1 or 2 pitches to hit, and he would hit it out. Like that's all he would get.
That's the thing. You're absolutely right. He was seeing 1 to 2 pitches a game.
A game, not in that
he
bat.
Was knocking it out the park. Rob, I'm telling, and I've seen I saw a little bit of Hank Aaron, as a kid.
At the end,
remember George Foster had a big year, 50-something home run.
He had 50
Dave
home runs.
Kingman. Yeah, like all the great home run hitters over this stretch. McGuire and Sosa, when they were on that run to pass
98,
60,
right.
Yeah, they were not quite like Bonds, obviously, but it was something similar there because they were hitting them at a crazy pace. But Bonds, Rob, it just, like I said, you literally can't tell the story about. You got to leave out like 5 years.
Right. No, it's that's why it's such a bummer to a lot of people. I heard from a lot of people who were really, really mad, really, really mad that they didn't find a way, or we didn't, I should say. I'm a part of that group. And it was 65% who voted for Bonds. He needed 75. Chris came about 36 votes short of being in. I really thought that there would be a rally at the end, you know what I mean, where people say,
right,
all right, he's been punished enough, right? 9 years we made him wait. This guy should have been a first ballot Hall of Famer if there was no PEDs. So we made him wait for 9 and boom, put him in. And they didn't do it.
Do you think that
the Veterans Committee?
Well, yeah, I mean,
well, now it's not as many. It's 4. See, he had to get 75% of 400 votes, right? That was the writers.
Right.
Now, Chris, it's only 16 people, not all writers, former players, former executives, and broadcasters, okay, in the
But
16.
I could see that.
He needs 12.
I could see players being like, man, this dude cheated the game. We're not putting him in.
Could
But
be.
here's the other thing, Rob. You mentioned it yesterday. We know there are guys in the Hall of Fame that they used. And I go back to, we've talked about it in the 70s, the greenies, that guys would just grab out of a bowl.
People don't want to talk about that.
Those are banned substances now.
But they were eating like M&Ms, Chris, in the 70s.
So how do you feel about the asterisks? Because you know I'm a proponent. Look, give them the plaque and put an asterisk there.
I just say give them the plaque and put on the plaque, because this is what, when you do a museum and people come, Chris, what do? They see your stuff and they read your plaque. Here is Barry Bonds, baseball's all-time home run leader, who was mired in a scandal during the steroid era between 1998 and 2004, whatever, 2004, whatever you put in, and spell it out on the plaque. So this is forever. It's on the plaque. Everybody who comes to the Hall of Fame 100 years from now is going to read that he was a home run king, but he played under a cloud of suspicion of steroid
How do you
use.
think the players would feel about that? Not that it necessarily has to matter, but, do you think the Bonds, the A-Rods, the Clemens would rather that, at least they're in?
I think they would accept that, to have their plaque in, because that's a thing forever. I mean, like.
I agree. And I think whether it's an asterisk or what you just said, I just think that's what you do.
You have to
acknowledge it.
Right. You have to
just acknowledge it.
Just like, what? I mean, and they haven't done it with Babe Ruth's plaque. I mean, because it was a different time. But we acknowledge that he played in the segregation era, Chris.
Right.
He didn't play against black and Latin players who are some of the greatest players who have ever played the game. And Babe Ruth played in the all-white league. Would he have been as great if he played against black and brown players? I don't know.
Right. No, it's fair. And I one thing I don't think, it doesn't matter. Maybe it doesn't matter at this point. But I just think putting them in without acknowledging it on the plaque, I don't think that would be good.
No, you got to acknowledge it.
A lot of players now would be like, oh, where's the punishment? I get to keep my money?
Right.
I get to be in the Hall of Fame? You know what I mean?
With nothing on it, right? The plaque has to be legit. And you don't have to go into it other than he was, under cloud of suspicion of PEDs, and that's it.
Right.